For the first time in 20 years, women have been entirely shut out of leadership positions of House committees. This wasn't an accident, and you could actually say it was a long time coming. This is a choice, one that signals just how far the Republican Party has turned back the clock and wants to turn back the clock. Take a look at this clip.
We have some big news right now. For the first time in decades, the Republican Party will not have a woman in a leadership position in the House of Representatives. All the committee chairs for the House Republican Caucus and the 119th Congress, the incoming Congress, have officially been decided, and not a single woman was elected to lead any of the House committees. And according to Axios, that's the first time in nearly 20 years since Republicans have not had a woman in a leadership role in any of the committees. A lot of folks have preached the fact that the Republican Party is the party of women, is the party of diversity, and
Who exactly is saying the Republican Party is the party of women and the party of diversity? Well, whoever it is hasn't seen this picture. This is a look at who will be leading those House committees. I hope you're wearing sunglasses. Um, that looks like a lot of very white, very male guys. And again, this did not happen in a vacuum. Republican leadership, the Republican Party actively made this decision to put a halt to the decades worth of incremental progress, not just Republicans, but we as a country have been making. What message does this send to young women? Well, one would be stop being a Republican. What about women who want to lead? What future do they think they have in the Republican Party? In a country who allows a party like the Republican Party to gain so much power. One impact is going to have on legislation when half of the population is completely shut out of leadership. As Representative Nancy Pelosi said recently, quote, diversity in leadership isn't just symbolic, it shapes the policies that affect us all, unquote, which is to say, representation really, really matters. Of course, it's not just leadership. Representation in Congress overall is stalling. According to the Center for American Women in Politics, women hold just 29% of seats in the House, despite making up, again, over half of the population of this country. Decisions about women's rights and equity are increasingly being made, especially, or I should say exclusively, on the right, without any women in the room participating in those discussions. It's important to remember this is a choice, and the consequences already have been and will be increasingly profound. If you think that's bullshit, wait till I get to the rest of what's going on. But let me know in the comments what you think of this bullshit. And while you're there, please like and share this video. And please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. It's free. Okay, so back in 2023, which seems like it was several millennia ago, the Supreme Court struck down affirmative action. And this is already shaping education and, not surprisingly, not for the better. The numbers coming out of Harvard Law School, for example, are absolutely chilling. Harvard Law just released the makeup of its first class since the Supreme Court's disastrous decision in Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard. And the share of Black students in the incoming class has dropped by more than half, from 43 Black students to 19. In just 1 year, that is, Black student enrollment plummeted. This, again, is not accidental. It's what happens when a conservative court deliberately dismantles tools designed to create equity. This is seen at almost every major university, from MIT, Brown, down 40%, Yale, Johns Hopkins, to name just a few. Take a look at this clip.
9 states had previously banned affirmative action at its public universities. Most saw a drop in minority students immediately after. Are you hopeful for the future?
I have to stay hopeful because that's what keeps us focused on being creative and innovating.
A long road ahead in the quest for diversity on campus.
Let's be clear here. Affirmative action was never about giving anybody an unfair advantage. It was about taking away the unfair advantage from the majority race in this country. It was about leveling the playing field in a country where systemic racism has made access to education unequal for centuries, and now, thanks to the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority on the Supreme Court, will continue to do so for perhaps decades to come. The New York Times also has reported that this ruling created a chilling effect on diversity across public universities as well, with institutions in states like Texas and Florida seeking similar declines in enrollment among Black and Latino students. The result? A future legal and political class that looks less and less like real America, which is to say, a diverse, multicultural country that we actually are, as much as Republicans would like to deny that. Harvard Law's numbers are a warning. Without affirmative action, America's top schools and the leadership positions that lead from them will once again become the exclusive right of the privileged. Now I want to take a look at what happened to Judge Adeel Mangi. Mangi was on the verge of making history as the first Muslim American federal appellate judge, but a coordinated campaign of bigotry and hatred drove him to withdraw from a confirmation that had been pending for nearly 365 days. Mangi is an accomplished attorney respected across the legal community and well regarded for his pro bono work for the Muslim American community, but none of that mattered. In his letter to President Biden announcing his withdrawal, Mangi described a, quote, tsunami of bigotry and hatred, unquote, that made the nomination process fundamentally broken. His exact words were, quote, "This campaign was never about my qualifications. It was about stoking fear, hate, and division. This unfortunate fact remains. We have a fundamentally broken process for choosing federal judges. This is no longer a system for evaluating fitness for judicial office. It is now a channel for the raising of money based on performative McCarthyism before video cameras and for the dissemination of dark money funded attacks that especially target minorities," unquote. I literally could not have said that better myself. Mangi did his best to ward off the baseless, bigoted, and insulting attacks of his questioners with dignity, but here's what he had to deal with.
Do you believe that Zionist settler colonialism was a provocation that justified Hamas's atrocity against Jews in Israel?
Do you condemn the atrocities of the Hamas terrorists?
Yes, that's what I was about to address, Senator.
Is there any justification for those atrocities?
Senator, I'll repeat myself. The events of October 7th were a horror. I have no patience, none, for any attempts to justify or defend those events.
Just as a reminder, this was a job interview for a man who wants to be an appellate judge in the United States of America and has nothing to do with Middle East policy. It was disgusting. But of course, this is not just about one-man struggles. It's about a system that allows organized hate fueled by Islamophobia, racism, and anti-immigrant sentiment to block progress. What's equally troubling is that groups behind this campaign have ties to well-funded right-wing organizations. The Times reports that conservative PACs and think tanks played a key role in spreading false claims and amplifying Islamophobic rhetoric about Mangi's record, demonstrating how bigotry is not just personal, but institutionalized and, of course, strategic. The fact that Mangi's appointment was torpedoed by 3 Democrats makes it even worse. That would be Joe Manchin, Cortez Masto, and Jackie Rosen, who really should have been on the right side of this. What we should be asking ourselves is this: who benefits when barriers remain in place for qualified, diverse leaders? Who wins when bigotry triumphs? The answer is the same as always: the powerful, the entrenched, and the unqualified bigots who are fighting to preserve a system that benefits only them. These stories, a Congress that excludes women from leadership, Harvard Law and other institutions of higher learning shutting out Black students and other students of color, and judges, Muslim judges who are forced to step aside because of the bigotry of their interlocutors, are not isolated events. They're symptoms of the same disease, an effort to reverse progress, entrench privileges, and deny opportunities to increasingly marginalized communities. The GOP, the Supreme Court, and the forces of organized bigotry are not acting alone. They're part of a larger movement to roll back the clock to a time when power belonged to the few and the rest of us were told to stay in our place. This is exactly the kind of regime Donald Trump and his inner circle are putting together that will gain power on January 20th, 2025. And we cannot sit by and let them win.